What's up everyone, Mark here and welcome to Rhodeside Kitchen. Today we're going to be making shepherd's pie. Now if that sounds at all familiar to you, you are not losing your mind. We did make a shepherd's pie almost a year ago now. It's my original shepherd's pie recipe. I still love it, I still stand by it. But one of my favorite shepherd's pie, and actually they make one of my favorite pot pies, chicken pot pies as well, is Centerville Pie Company out of Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Now, they do sell their pies through the supermarket, local to me, although they are on the pricier side. I'm certainly not going to save any money by driving out to the Cape to buy them or having them shipped to me. So I wanted to kind of take that pie and find a way to make it or make something similar at home. And in actuality, it's already very similar to the recipe that we've already done. The thing that I think makes it a step above and that makes it that much better is that it has a pastry bottom crust. So that's really what we're going to do here today. We're also going to change things up and add some corn and peas that were not in the original recipe. Now before we get into the recipe, I do want to take a second to thank you all again for your support of the channel. Please subscribe if you've not subscribed already. Just click the red button down below the video or the watermark in the corner, and when you do, make sure you hit the bell icon so you get a notification every time I have a new video out. Let's make that shepherd's pie. All right, so today we have 1 pound of lean ground beef. This is 90% lean ground beef. The leaner the better for a recipe like this. We have some salt and pepper and a half a teaspoon of baking soda. We've also got 1.5 pounds of russet potatoes. These have been peeled and cut into about 1/2-inch chunks and just covered with water. 1/3 cup of milk, 4 tablespoons of butter, which is just softened, and 1 egg yolk. I've got a little bit of oil for cooking in. We've got 1 onion. My onion was actually a little small, so I also threw in a rib of celery that I had kicking around that was kind of on its last legs. No harm, again, I always promote using up what you've got. We have a tablespoon of tomato paste. I'm actually out of tomato paste. Instead, I am using Marmite. It's a yeast extract, high in glutamates. It adds a meaty flavor to dishes that are made without meat, and it makes meat dishes even more meaty. You can actually look forward to a tasting of that coming up pretty soon if it hasn't been out already. But again, I use it in soups and stews and things like that all the time now. So we're going to sub that in here instead of the tomato paste. We have 2 cloves of garlic, either crushed through the garlic press or otherwise minced or grated. A couple of tablespoons of red wine, 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour, 1.25 cups of beef broth, 2 teaspoons of Worcestershire sauce, 1 tablespoon of dried thyme, 1 carrot peeled and chopped, and about 1/2 cup each of frozen peas and frozen carrots. So 1 cup of frozen vegetables, and 2 teaspoons of cornstarch. And of course, we have our prepared pie shell. Again, as I said, the same recipe we've been using all along. Single crust rolled out to about 12 inches, carefully pressed into the pie plate, excess folded in and crimped around the edge to make a nice little fluted design and give it a good substantial edge crust. So the first thing we are going to do is add a little bit of salt and pepper to season the beef. And there's a couple of tablespoons of water in here already, and we're going to sprinkle it with the baking soda. This just kind of helps modify the pH and help with browning. And we're going to let that sit now for about 20 minutes. In the meantime, we're going to get started on our potatoes. We're going to bring these to a boil and reduce it to a simmer and have them go for probably about 15-20 minutes, just until they're soft and ready to mash. All right, our potatoes are finished cooking. I drained them and put them back on the heat just for a couple of minutes, stir them, just to make sure that any excess water was dried off. Now it's time to add the butter. And we're going to mash. Next, we're going to work in the egg yolk. And lastly, we're going to add our milk. A little bit of salt and pepper. Okay, now you can keep these warm and do this step later, but I just assume do it now. Transfer them into a plastic Ziploc bag just for piping them onto the top of the pie later. It's easier to do this if you can stand the bag up in a large measuring cup or pot or bowl, just to help hold it steady for you. I'm going to squeeze out as much of the air as I can. And we will put this aside until we are ready for it. And it is time to get started on the filling. So we've got a couple of tablespoons of oil heating over medium heat. Add my onion, and in this case, celery rib. And we're just gonna sweat that for a couple of minutes until it turns a little translucent. Just with a little bit of salt and pepper. All right, that's starting to get a little bit of color. We are ready to add the garlic. I'm just gonna give that about 30 seconds or until it's fragrant. Now, if you were using tomato paste, you'd want to add that now and sort of cook it a little bit until it starts to darken. Since I am using Marmite in place of that, it doesn't really need to cook. We're just gonna add that in and then add the wine right away. I'm going to sprinkle the flour over this. And just cook off any raw flour smell. Make sure there's no dry flour left in the pan. It's going to stick to the bottom of the pan and start forming some brown stuff, some fond. That's okay, that's what we want to happen. Okay, and once that starts to smell a little toasty, I'm going to add our beef broth, Worcestershire sauce, thyme, and the carrots. And get this combined and bring it up to a simmer. I want to break up any clumps of floury vegetables in here now that you've got enough liquid. Okay, finally it is time to add our chunks of beef. And we do want to leave these, like I said, in chunks. I'm going to reduce this down to a simmer. Cover, and we're going to let this go for about 5 minutes, and then we're going to come back and break up that meat. Okay. I'm going to break up the chunks of meat. Already looking good. Looks like we're thickening up nicely. Kind of press on some of these with the spatula to break them into pieces. All right, gonna give that about 5 more minutes, and we'll be ready to add our peas. All right, we're looking pretty good here. Normally I would take a little bit of the liquid out and make a slurry with cornstarch to thicken this, but I'm not sure I really even need the cornstarch. So I'm gonna sprinkle a little bit of it on there anyway. Okay, we're gonna kill the heat. And now it is time to stir in the peas and corn. And again, those don't really need to cook. They're just gonna kind of heat through with the filling. That looks perfect. All right, we're going to pour our filling into the crust. And we want to spread this out as evenly as we can get it. And it might look like this is a little low, but we want that because we need room for the potatoes on the top. All right, now we want to take our potatoes, and since they've been sitting there for a while, they are still warm, but I do want to make sure they're still soft enough to maneuver. And we're going to clip off about 1/2 inch of the corner of the bag. Now, I'm going to pipe these on starting at the edge and making a spiral pattern towards the center. It doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to smooth this out after, and then we will make a pattern in it with a fork. And now I can kind of go back and fill in any gaps that may have opened up. Okay, now we just want to smooth this out the best we can. We do kind of want to press the potatoes up into the crust edge just to help seal things. All right, now we're going to take our fork and starting at the outside edge, we're going to make a nice little spiral pattern. Perfect. All right, so this is going to go into a 425-degree oven for about 30 minutes. Now remember, the filling is completely cooked. We're really just looking to get some color and doneness on the crust here. Now if the crust starts to brown too fast, especially on the edges before the potato starts to get some color, you can always pull it out of the oven, shield it with some aluminum foil around the crust, and then put it back in under the broiler. It's the grill, the top element. Watch it carefully, but just a few more minutes under the broiler should be able to get you some nice brown color on the top. All in all, I think it'll take about 30 minutes in the oven, plus maybe a few minutes under the broiler. And then we're going to need to let it cool for about 10 minutes before we dig in. So I'm going to put this into the oven, and I will be back when we are ready to give it a taste. Okay, so this went for just about 30 minutes at 425. During the last 10 minutes, I did take it out and put some strips of aluminum foil around the crust just to protect it from burning. And then I did a couple of minutes under the broiler at the end just to get some extra color on the potato. And it has now been cooling a little bit for about 10 minutes, and I think we are ready to cut a slice and see if our fancy shepherd's pie with potato top and flaky pastry bottom crust actually cuts into a nice slice. Does it pie? I would say it pies pretty well. It's a nice slice. That is delicious. It's moist without being soggy. You can see there's actual browned bottom crust. This is really good. So, you know, not like I have a problem with my original, but again, to take it a step up, give it a full crust, adding the peas and corn, which weren't in the original. Guys, that's it for another one. I hope you enjoyed this recipe. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Either way, tell me what you think down in the comments, and please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. That's it for this one. We'll see you next time.